Hi there and welcome to Yoga Physio Zone. This is the Hypermobility series. So this is for you guys who have hypermobility or hyperflexibility, same meaning, in your joints, which means that you have very specific needs in a yoga class. So before watching this, make sure you have watched my explanation video on hypermobility and then we're ready to go. So we are going to be doing a series of classes which will be lying down on our front and on our back, and really the focus is going to be on muscle activation. So it's not going to be about improving flexibility for you guys, it's actually about improving the strength of your muscles. And as a result of that, tight muscles will loosen out if you strengthen them, but also your joints will have something to protect them when you are doing the poses. You will have good strong muscles to provide that stability. So come to lie down on the ground, and for the first pose I'm going to get you to lengthen out your left leg so that your right leg is bent up. No, sorry, the other way around. So bend up your left leg and then lengthen out the right leg. Now put your hands in under your lower back. So when you lie down, you'll find there's a natural kind of a curve. So your upper back will be firmly in contact with the ground, your bum will be firmly in contact with the ground, and usually there's a point where you can kind of stick your hand in underneath you, or at least it can slide in. So place your two hands there, and that is your starting position, okay? So for this pose, to start with, what we're going to do is press your lower back into the ground so that you are squeezing the two hands under it. That activates your core, and then lift up that right leg up off the ground and back down, okay, and then just release. Now if you can't lift it up because it just won't lift because you don't have the strength, don't worry about it. If you're putting in the preparatory work for it, eventually someday it will. So let's do that again. Pressing our hands into the ground, squeezing them with our lower back, and then lifting that right leg up and back down. And let's do that again. Pressing the lower back into the ground, squeezing our hands, activating our core muscles, and then lifting up the leg and back down. Okay, let's swap over. So I'm going to swap legs. Now the left one is long, the right one is bent up. Hands are still underneath the lower back. Pressing in with our lower back to squeeze our hands, and then lifting up that left leg and back down. Now of course you can make this even more active on your leg by really, when you're lifting it, really squeezing on your kneecap so that you're really making that leg like a concrete board, really making it straight and strong before you do the lift, and actually that sometimes makes the lift easier. So let's do number 2, squeezing our back into the ground, squishing our hands. Pull the toes up, contract the kneecap, then lifting up that left leg and back down. And relaxing. And then once more, squeezing our hands by pushing our lower back into the ground. Pulling up our toes, pulling up our kneecap, and then lifting up the leg and back down. Now you can place this video on pause if you want to do a few more of those, but otherwise that is a really good start. So that's really activating your core muscles as well as your leg muscles. So the next one we are going to do, again, is just lying with our legs long. If you need to keep them slightly bent, do. Lying with the legs long, you're going to place your hands so that they're facing the ceiling and your elbows are on the ground. And all I want you to do here, and you can actually just tighten your fists for this one because it helps, is pushing your elbows into the ground and seeing if you can lift your chest up towards the ceiling. So you're keeping the back of your head in contact with the ground, you're just lifting the chest up and back down. So you're really activating the shoulder blade muscles, the muscles at the upper back, lifting the chest towards the ceiling and back down. So really, really, really digging in with elbows, really the force pushing into the ground with the elbows, lifting off with the chest. If you want to hold that, if you want to make it a bit harder, you can hold it. You can hold, do a couple of breaths, and come back down. And of course, with all these poses, you can make them harder as you get better by actually holding them for longer. Okay, so that's how you progress. You can progress numerically, as in instead of doing 3 or 4 of the repetitions like I'm showing you, you could do 5, 6, 10, whatever. Or you can choose to hold the poses for maybe 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. So that's how you progress it beyond what I'm showing you today. So let's go again, pressing those elbows into the ground, lifting the chest up, and maybe trying to hold that, really pushing into the ground. Doing a couple of breaths, whatever you're able for, and coming back down, but always having your neck comfortable in that one. No pain anywhere. You always, always, always in yoga, you don't allow any pain to occur. You have to stick to the point in your poses where you have comfort, but it's difficult for you, but there is still comfort and you're still able to breathe. Okay, so let's do one last pose lying on our back, and this is the bridge pose. Bend up the 2 knees, placing the knees flat on the ground. Now for this one, we're going to be like lifting up our bum, all right? But there's a bit of, if you want to do a really nice bridge, you put in a little bit of work beforehand. So the back of your head has to be comfortable. If you need to put a small pillow underneath your head for any of these poses, you do, all right? Just keep yourself comfortable. Now, what I want you to do is just walk your shoulders away from your ears. So your shoulders are kind of far away from your ears in as much as they can be. Your hands are facing down if possible. Now for this one, you can also push in with your elbows to help the lift, okay? But we want most of the lift coming from kind of the lower back and the bum area. In order to help this, we do activate our inner core muscles. So that's the pelvic floor muscles. Those are the muscles that we use when we're really dying to go to the loo and we're holding on to it, those muscles there. And also our inner core muscles, our abdominal muscles. So when I say pelvic floor, and when I say pull up on your pelvic floor, those muscles in between your thighs, just down by your genital area, just as if you were trying to suck them up into the center of you, and then pull your belly in, and as if you're trying to suck it under your ribs. So let's just do that a couple of times before we start, and then just release and soften everything out. And let's do that again. So pulling up on the pelvic floor area, sucking that area up, pulling our belly in and up under our rib cage as if we were sucking everything into a mid-channel, and then releasing back down. Now the next time we activate this, we are also going to do a lift. So ready. Pulling up on the pelvic floor, sucking it up into the center of you, sucking your belly in and up under your rib cage, and then lifting your bum up while pushing your knees down towards your feet and away from you, and then just seeing how high you can get. And once again, only stay as long as is comfortable. You might find you can barely get up, or you might find you can only half get up. That is fine. That's what you work with, okay? So let's do 3 of those. Pulling up on the pelvic floor, pulling in on the belly, and then lifting up. Good. Just seeing how high you can go, maybe coming straight back down, maybe staying a bit longer, but really activating the core muscles as you do that. Well done. Okay, so that is the bridge, coming down nice and gradually. And by making the descent nice and slow, you also really work on your core. So rather than just kind of going up and going down, what you're doing is like as if your spine was a string of pearls. You're trying to gradually lift, segment by segment, and gradually come down segment by segment. So that makes it harder. So yeah. So you want to be progressing so that you are actually doing harder versions of the pose as you get better, and not just staying at these basic but quite difficult levels as well. Okay, so there's progressions. We are now going to do a side plank. Now, the full side plank is this kind of a thing here, right? We're not even going to attempt that first. You have to kind of just see what you're able for. So come up perhaps onto your forearm. And we're going to do this one with the knees bent first of all, just so you can kind of see what you're able for. Get your elbow directly in under your shoulder. Now, if you have any shoulder problems here, you may have to just leave this one out. What we want to do is we're trying to activate these muscles actually on the underneath side of us. So I've got my knees bent, and then I am pushing my forearm and elbow away from me into the ground and seeing, can I lift up my waist and bum just a little bit, and then letting the head relax down and coming back down. Okay, so it's really working the side muscles. So we've worked on some of the back muscles. We're now working on the side muscles. So lifting up and back down. Now, as you get better at that one, you can straighten out the legs, and you can do that with straight legs. But really don't do that until you're quite comfortable with doing that. And you can hold it, and you can hold it, and you can breathe. You can hold forever. See how you go. And then let's do the same on the other side. So I'm just going to turn around this way, but you can just turn around to your other side. And again, we're on our forearm, got our knees bent. This is where we're starting. Then we're pushing the forearm and the elbow into the ground, lifting up the waist. And once again, if you can't lift and you can barely activate a lift, so what? That is what you start with. And you work on that. And eventually you will lift up a little bit higher, and then maybe eventually you'll be able to hold it for 2 breaths or 3 breaths or whatever. And once again, there will probably be a side difference. One of the sides is bound to be easier than the other because we're all asymmetrical. Lovely. Now, so that's the side. I suppose they're a version of the side plank, and you can progress those. But start with the nice and gently, and once again, be wary of any shoulder issues that you might have, that you just might have to progress more slowly if you have the shoulder issues, or you might have to leave that one out altogether. Now, let's come over on our stomach. When we're on our stomach, it really gives us a chance to work on some of the shoulder blade muscles. So the muscles that kind of, not that hunch our shoulders, but that bring them away from our ears and pull them down our back towards our waist area. So we are going to do the Sphinx pose, mainly because I love it so much. It's all about me. So here we are propping ourselves up on our forearms. If you need to have your forearms out here or out here, that's fine. Just whatever version of this that you can do comfortably. And once you kind of get into that position, what I would like you to do is actually press into the ground with your pelvis and the front of your thighs. Now, when you do that, you might find you have a bit more freedom in your back to come a little bit higher, but you don't have to push it. Just pressing into the ground with your pelvis and with your upper thighs. And then pull your shoulders away from your ears so you feel your shoulder blades going right down your back. And you are keeping your chin tucked in, and just do a couple of breaths. Don't outstay your welcome. If you need to come down out of this, if you feel, oh, that's enough, just come back down. But see how long you can hold the Sphinx comfortably while breathing. Breath is really important in these ones as well. Breathing in, breathing out, and coming back down. So that's typical of a type of pose that is really good for people with hypermobility. It's not about the flexibility and getting, because some of you guys will be able to go much further back than I am, really far back. It's actually about muscle activation while you are in the pose, okay? So let's do that once more. Coming up again. And as I said, some of you guys will be able to go really far back, but try not to go as far back as you can, in fact. Maybe just pull away from it a little bit and concentrate more on how many muscles can I get activating while I'm in this pose. So pressing into the ground with my pelvis and my upper thighs, pressing into the ground with my forearms, really pressing strongly, pulling my shoulders away from my ears, pulling them down my back. Ooh, I can feel all the muscles working. Tucking my chin, keeping my neck comfortable, and breathing. So how many muscles can I activate while I am in this pose? And you will find by pressing into the ground and really grounding in your poses, you can really get good muscle activation. Okay, so we're going to turn that into a Sphinx plank. This is great fun. So you're going to come up onto your forearms, okay? Now remember what we did before. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be lifting up like this, or whatever version of that you can do comfortably. Your toes are going to be tucked under to give you a little bit of force. Now, remember when we were lying down and when we were doing the bridge pose, we pulled up on our pelvic floor muscles. So those muscles that we squeeze when we're trying to hold on to, when we need to go to the loo really badly. So it's like those ones there, but instead of just squeezing tightly, we're kind of like as if we're trying to pull them up and suck them up into our center. And then we're pulling in on our belly and trying to suck that away from the ground a little bit. Then tuck the toes under and see what bit of this you can do. Can I lift away? And once again, depending on how long you can hold it, that will activate your muscles for longer. But if you can barely get a lift up, honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're at least attempting to pull the belly, so even if you leave your knees on the ground and then just pull the belly away from the ground, that's a really good place to start with the Sphinx plank. So maybe that's the best one for you to start with. So let's do that once more. We're in the Sphinx position. Ooh, my arms are getting sore. That's a good sign. Not sore, it's hard. So pushing with my forearms into the ground, and then what I am going to do is try and lift my belly away from that, leaving my knees on the ground. Holding that. No strain on the neck and coming back down. So that really activates a lot of the muscles of your shoulders, your shoulder blades and your upper back. So Sphinx plank. Eventually then you can think about lifting up the whole body. Okay, so Sphinx plank. Really good poses here. There was one thing I wanted to show you, and that is child's pose. So you're probably familiar with child's pose, and when you're coming back into child's pose, you kind of just lie and you bend your bum back towards your heels and you put your hands out in front of you and you rest your forehead. Now, with child's pose, there is one thing with very hypermobile people that may need a small bit of minding, and that is if you have very flexible knee ligaments, you just need to watch when you're doing child's pose that you don't overstretch your knees, the front of your knees here, okay? You may find that keeping your legs apart while you do child's pose works better on your knees, okay? And that's perfectly fine and valid. What I would say to you though, if you do have large muscles or large bulk in your thigh and in your calf, when you approximate them towards each other, in a person like me who isn't hypermobile, my knee joint there'll come a point where my knee joint will stop me from going further. That may not happen in you guys. So if you squeeze too far back on your honkers, you might actually overstretch the knee joint here. So be careful of that, okay? So particularly if you have had issues with your kneecaps and with instability around your knee, I would say for child's pose, take a less squeezy version of it, not so much squeezing your bum towards your heels, and maybe just coming up a little bit and letting a little bit of distance be between your bum and your heel. Okay, so that's just child's pose. As I said, it's usually a rest pose. But for you guys, just for some of you with knee problems, you may just need to mind it a little bit. So that is your first class for hypermobility, and that will give you enough to work on. And I will see you for the second series, which will be where we progress to doing some poses on all fours. See you then.